It started the way most things do, with nothing special at all. Just a Wednesday morning. The kind where the world feels muted, like it hasn't quite woken up yet. I was sitting at the corner table of a small coffee shop near campus, scrolling through my phone, pretending to look busy. My coffee had gone cold 10 minutes earlier, but I didn't bother asking for a refill. I wasn't there for the coffee. I'd gotten into the habit of coming here after class. It wasn't even a conscious choice at first, just somewhere quiet, away from the noise of my apartment and the restless half-friends I spent time with but never really knew. That's when she walked in. I recognized her before my brain caught up. Miss Harrington. My old English teacher. She looked almost the same, just softer somehow. Her hair was pulled back loosely, a few strands falling forward. She wore the kind of scarf you'd think belonged in a Paris cafe instead of this cramped place with squeaky chairs. She didn't notice me right away. She went straight to the counter, ordered tea, not coffee, tea, and the barista already knew her order. That surprised me. She came here often. I don't know what made me stare so long. Maybe it was the way she waited, tapping her fingers lightly against the lid of her thermos. A small rhythm, like she was keeping time with a song only she could hear. And then she saw me. Daniel? Her voice carried the same calm authority it had years ago, but now it felt warmer. I nodded, a little too quickly. Hey, Miss Harrington. She laughed softly, shaking her head. Please, it's been years. Call me Claire. The name sat strange in my mouth, too familiar and too distant at the same time. She brought her tea over without asking if she could sit, but I didn't mind. She placed it carefully on the table, like she always handled things with intention. You come here often? I asked, instantly regretting the cliché. She smiled anyway. Every morning. Same time. Creature of habit. I folded the corner of my napkin, then unfolded it again. Guess I've never noticed. She tilted her head. Or maybe we've just been missing each other. There was a pause after that, not awkward exactly, just heavy. I watched steam curl from her cup and thought about all the words I'd left unsaid over the years. Like how she was the only teacher who ever noticed when I stayed after class, not because I needed help, but because I didn't want to go home yet. We talked in pieces, half-thoughts, shared looks. She remembered little details about me, like how I used to scribble song lyrics in the margins of essays. I remembered how she always returned papers with notes that sounded less like corrections and more like conversations. The coffee shop was louder now, but between us it felt like everything had slowed. At one point, she asked, "Do you still write?" I hesitated. Not really. Just, notes I never send. Her eyes lingered on me then, softer than I expected. She didn't push, just sipped her tea. When she finally stood, gathering her scarf, she said, "Well, I'll see you around." I nodded, pretending to check my phone so I wouldn't look like I cared too much. But when I glanced down for real, I saw a message waiting. From a number I didn't recognize. You didn't tell me if you still write. Maybe next time. I looked up, but she was already out the door. I told myself I wouldn't think too much about her text. But of course, I did. The next morning I found myself back at the cafe earlier than usual. I ordered coffee, sat at the same table, folded and unfolded another napkin. My phone stayed face up, like I was waiting for proof that the message had actually happened. She came in a few minutes later, scarf tucked into her coat, hair damp from rain. She noticed me immediately, that faint smile curving before she even said anything. "You're early," Claire said, placing her tea down across from me. I shrugged. Couldn't sleep. She studied me for a second, like she knew that wasn't the whole truth. Then she unwrapped a small pastry, broke it in half, and slid one piece toward me. We ate in silence. The quiet kind that isn't empty, but waited. After a while, she said, "You know, I almost didn't recognize you yesterday. You've changed." I laughed softly. "Hopefully for the better." "Different," she corrected. "But your eyes are the same." That line stuck with me. I didn't know what to do with it. I wanted to ask why she'd texted me, why she remembered something so small about me after all these years. Instead, I asked, "Do you still teach?" Her hand paused on the cup. "No. I stopped last year." There was something in her tone, final, edged with regret. "Why?" I asked. She hesitated, then said quietly, "Life shifts. Divorce. A move. Some things don't fit anymore." She didn't meet my eyes when she said it, and I knew better than to press. Still, hearing it left a strange ache in me. I remembered being 17, watching her erase the board at the end of class, the chalk dust clinging to her sleeves, the way she carried herself like she belonged everywhere. And now she sat across from me, looking almost fragile. It felt risky, realizing I wanted to know more. Riskier still to admit I wanted to be the person she told. I tried to push it back, to remind myself she was twice my age, that she'd once graded my essays and asked about my plans for college. But then she brushed a crumb from the table, her fingers grazing mine for just a second, and the thought dissolved. She noticed, too, I could tell from the slight pause, the way her eyes flicked toward our hands before pulling back. "You still haven't answered me," she said. "About writing." I swallowed. "Sometimes. Late at night. But it's, mostly for me. Not something I'd show anyone." Her smile was small, almost private. "That's the best kind." We lingered there until her tea cooled and the cafe got busy. She stood, adjusted her scarf. "Walk with me?" she asked. Outside, the rain had slowed to a drizzle. We walked side by side, saying almost nothing. At the corner, she stopped and touched my arm, just a light press of her fingers, no more than a second. It shouldn't have meant anything. But it did. I don't know why that moment stayed with me, maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me. It became a quiet pattern after that. Coffee in the mornings. A short walk if the weather held. Nothing dramatic, nothing that would raise suspicion, just two people who happened to end up in the same place. But the more I saw her, the harder it was to keep things simple. That morning, she slid into the chair across from me, shaking the damp from her umbrella. She smelled faintly of rain and something floral. "You always get here first," she said. I shrugged. "Habit." Her eyes lingered on me, searching for something. Then she looked away, fussing with the lid of her tea. We talked about small things, books, music, how the cafe always played the same playlist. But underneath it, there was this pull. Like every sentence was just a cover for what neither of us wanted to say. At one point, I asked, "Do you ever miss teaching?" She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Sometimes. But it's strange, you know. Seeing people grow up. Realizing they don't need you anymore." The way she said it, soft, almost careful, made me want to argue. I wanted to tell her she was wrong, that she was sitting across from someone who still needed her more than he could admit. But before I could say anything, the bell above the door chimed. A guy from my class walked in, spotted me, and gave a nod. "Hey, man," he said, grabbing his coffee to go. His eyes flicked toward Claire, curious, but he didn't comment. Still, I felt my stomach tighten. Suddenly, everything about the moment felt exposed, the closeness of our chairs, the way she leaned slightly toward me. When he left, silence stretched between us. She tapped her fingers against her cup, once, twice. Then she pushed her chair back slightly. Maybe we shouldn't, she began, but stopped. Shouldn't what? I asked, too quickly. Her gaze met mine for a moment, then dropped. Nothing. The words hung there, heavier than if she'd finished the thought. I tried to laugh it off, to change the subject, but the air felt charged. She shifted in her seat, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. My eyes followed the motion, lingering too long. And she noticed. Her breath caught, just slightly. Then she leaned forward, elbows resting on the table. Daniel, I don't know what I expected her to say. Maybe to tell me I was imagining everything. Maybe to admit I wasn't. But she stopped herself. Her hand moved across the table, almost without thought. It rested near mine, not touching, but close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating off her skin. I should have pulled back. I didn't. For a heartbeat, neither of us moved. Her eyes lifted to mine, steady, unblinking. It felt like the moment before something irreversible. Then she exhaled and drew her hand back, fingers curling around her cup as though nothing had happened. I looked away, pretending to study the window. But the truth was, I'd never been closer to saying what I wasn't supposed to say. It happened on a Thursday evening, after the cafe had already closed. She suggested we walk instead. The air was sharp with early autumn, leaves dragging across the sidewalk like they didn't know where to land. We ended up on a bench near the river. The lamppost above us flickered, throwing us in and out of shadow. She pulled her scarf tighter. He didn't say anything. Her mouth curved in a small, sad smile. Doesn't matter. People notice more than you think. I didn't know how to answer. My chest felt heavy, like I'd been holding something in too long. She kept her eyes on the water. This, whatever it is, it's not fair to you. I turned toward her, sharper than I meant to. Don't decide that for me. The words came out harder than they should have. She flinched slightly, then looked at me fully for the first time that night. Her gaze was steady, but her voice trembled just enough. You're young, Daniel. You have your whole life. And I'm, what? A woman trying to put hers back together. I shook my head, frustrated. You don't get it. Then explain it, she said, almost a challenge. But when I opened my mouth, nothing came. How could I explain the way she made silence feel less lonely? Or how her smallest glance steadied something in me I hadn't even known was shaking? My hands clenched on my knees. I don't want to lose this. Whatever this is. She let out a breath, the kind you give when you're trying not to let something spill. You think I don't feel the same? That stopped me. Her fingers were twisting the edge of her scarf now, nervous, uncalculated. She didn't usually show her cracks, but there they were, small, human, undoing me. I wake up, she said quietly, and I tell myself not to come here. Not to look for you. And then I do anyway. The confession hung in the cold air, fragile, undeniable. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees, close enough to catch the faint warmth of her shoulder near mine. So what are we doing? Her lips parted, like she had the answer but couldn't bring herself to say it. Her hand moved an inch toward mine, then stopped. The river kept moving. The lamppost buzzed faintly above us. Everything else waited. And then she asked, almost a whisper, do you really know what you want? The next morning, I went to the cafe early. Too early. The chairs were still stacked, the floor damp from mopping. I sat outside anyway, waiting. But she never came. At first, I told myself she was late. Then maybe she had an appointment. By the time an hour passed, I stopped pretending. The following day, the same thing. No, Claire. I tried not to think about it, but my phone betrayed me. Half-written messages stacked up in my drafts. You okay? Did I say something wrong? I'll wait tomorrow if you come. None of them sent. By the third day, the emptiness of the table across from me was unbearable. I left before my coffee cooled. It was only on the fourth day that I saw her again, though not where I expected. I was cutting through the park near campus when I spotted her on another bench, this time not alone. A boy sat beside her. 17, maybe 18. He had her eyes. She laughed at something he said, the kind of laugh I'd been waiting for all week. And then I knew. Her son. She hadn't mentioned him. Not once. I stopped walking, kept a distance, but I must have lingered too long. She noticed me. Her smile faltered just slightly before she covered it, waving me over with a gentleness that only made it worse. Daniel, she said when I approached. Her voice was careful, like she was arranging glass on a shelf. This is Adam. The boy nodded, polite, uninterested. Claire filled the silence with small talk, asking about my classes, my plans. None of it felt real. When Adam stood to take a call, she leaned closer, lowering her voice. I was going to tell you, she said. I forced a smile. You don't owe me that. But the truth was, I didn't know what to do with it. The gap between us, already wide, had stretched into something impossible. She must have seen it in my face, because she didn't try to explain further. Just touched my sleeve lightly as she stood. Take care of yourself, Daniel. And that was it. For the first time in weeks, I didn't follow. That night, I opened my notes app and typed a message I couldn't send. I don't care about the complications. I just care about you. I stared at it until the screen dimmed. Then I locked my phone and set it face down on the desk. I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt paused. Like life forgot to finish the sentence. The next morning, I walked past the cafe without going in. Her seat stayed empty. So did mine. A week passed before I saw her again. It wasn't at the cafe. Not the park either. I was walking home late, headphones in, when I spotted her standing outside the corner store. She was holding a paper bag, fumbling with her keys, looking tired in a way I hadn't seen before. I almost kept walking. Pretended not to notice. But something in me wouldn't let that happen. Claire, I said. She turned, startled. For a second, she looked like she might step back. Then she exhaled, shoulders softening. Daniel. We stood there, the streetlight buzzing above us, a car passing with its music too loud. No cafe soundtrack, no neutral table between us. Just her, me, and the things we hadn't said. You disappeared, I said. My voice cracked more than I wanted it to. Her eyes flicked down, then back to mine. I had to. Adam, he doesn't understand. He shouldn't have to. I nodded slowly, though something in my chest rebelled. And me? The question slipped out before I could stop it. She blinked, caught off guard. You. Do I get an explanation? She hesitated, then stepped closer, lowering her voice. I was scared. Of how much I leaned on you. Of how much I wanted to. The honesty hit harder than I expected. My throat tightened. For weeks, I'd imagined her feelings as a shadow of mine, but hearing her say it, quiet, unpolished, made it real. You don't have to protect me, I said. Yes, I do. She shook her head, almost smiling but not quite. You're young. You think that makes you strong, but it doesn't. It makes you unafraid of consequences. I can't afford that anymore. We fell into silence. A painful, stretching kind. She clutched the paper bag tighter, like it might keep her steady. I shoved my hands into my pockets, grounding myself in the rough fabric. Finally, I said, I don't want this to just end like nothing happened. Her face softened. It didn't. It won't. The words landed in me like a confession and a goodbye at the same time. I looked at her then, not as my teacher, not as someone untouchable, but as a person standing under a flickering streetlight, just as uncertain as me. I care about you, I said simply. No grand speech, no metaphors. Just that. Her eyes glistened, though she didn't cry. She reached out, fingers brushing the back of my hand. Not a grasp. Just a touch, light as breath. I know, she whispered. That was all. No kiss. No promises. Just her touch, and the quiet acknowledgement hanging between us. I don't know if it was enough. But in that moment, it felt like the only answer either of us could give. And when she finally pulled her hand back, she gave me the smallest, most fragile smile. Okay, she said. Time did what time always does. It dulled the urgency, softened the edges. Weeks passed before we fell into a rhythm again. Not the daily cafe meetings, not the constant checking of my phone, but something steadier. Once a week, sometimes twice. A walk in the park. Tea for her, black coffee for me. 8:47 a.m. became less of a ritual, more of a coincidence we didn't fight. It wasn't the same as before. And maybe that was better. I stopped waiting for her to explain herself. She stopped trying to protect me from what I already knew. We let the silence do more of the talking, and in a way, it said everything. One morning we found ourselves back on the same bench by the river. The lamppost still flickered at night, but in daylight it was just a bent piece of metal, ordinary, unremarkable. She sat with her scarf wrapped loosely around her neck, steam rising from her thermos. You never change your order, she said, handing me the second half of her pastry, like she always did. And you never finish one, I answered. That made her laugh, not the polite laugh she gave strangers, but the unguarded one that reached her eyes. I realized I'd been chasing that sound from the very beginning. We didn't talk about what we were. We didn't need to. It was in the way she remembered when I had deadlines, in the way I walked her to her door without being asked. It was in the ease of her hand brushing mine and neither of us pretending it was an accident anymore. Not a grand love. Not fireworks. Just steady warmth, like black coffee on a cold morning, like tea that had cooled but was still good enough to finish. I thought back to the first time I saw her here, tapping her fingers against the lid of her thermos, waiting. I realized then that maybe we'd both been waiting, not for each other exactly, but for someone who noticed the small things, the quiet habits. Life didn't become perfect. She still had her son, her past. I still had the rest of my 20s to stumble through. But somehow, the weight of those things felt lighter when shared. As we sat there, the river moving steady as ever, she glanced at me and said, almost absently, I don't know why, but this fits. I didn't answer right away. Just folded the corner of my napkin, let the silence stretch. Then I looked at her and said, yeah. It does. And she smiled, the kind of smile you don't show the world, only the person who stayed long enough to earn it. That was all we needed. Did this story stay with you? What kind of quiet, real love stories do you want to hear next?